Let's bring in the border security advisor for the Federation of American Immigration Reform, Art Del Cueto. And Art, we're going to pick it up where Lucas left off. Here's just a sampling of some of the left's anti-ICE rhetoric. Listen.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
Secret police who are masked, who are intimidating, who are scaring people. These Gestapo-like tactics.
It does look like a Gestapo operation. It does look like the Gestapo.
ICE, unmasked. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Art, is language like that from Democrat leaders, no less, directly causing lunatics like we saw yesterday to feel emboldened to attack ICE?
Absolutely, and they should know better. Look, they're out there flaming the flames on something like this, and they keep making it a bigger and bigger issue, and they know exactly who's listening to them. They're aware of these deranged lunatics that are listening to them, that are taking every word that they're saying to heart, so they go out there and they do these types of atrocities. And you can tell because if you look at the ammo that they left behind, and this isn't the first time, they will sketch that anti-ICE, that, you know, who they hate. They write all that down on these bullet shells because they're not scared to get caught. They want to get caught. They want people to say, oh, okay, look, it's them. Look, this is the reason he's doing it. They think they're doing a good deed, but you have to point the finger at a lot of these politicians and these so-called leaders that are pushing it with their own rhetoric.
Art, do you think Democrats will tone down this rhetoric in light of what we saw yesterday and in light of recent events? I'll just go broad brush there.
Right. No, I think that, you know what it is they'll flip the script and they'll make it sound like they're going to tone it down. And look, take Jimmy Kimmel, case in point, the awful things he said on his show. But then he turns around when he comes back. First of all, he didn't offer the apology, and I get that. He wasn't going to do it. I wasn't expecting it. But he turned around the narrative and he made it about himself, made himself be the victim. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to have them turn it around, make excuses, make themselves be the victim. Look, remember, when President Trump has brought down the numbers in crime throughout the entire country, they won't admit it. They see the numbers and they see the fact, but they won't admit it. We're dealing with individuals that don't care to admit the truth. They don't care to give credit where credit's due, which is in this administration, and they're going to continue to flip that narrative to their own political theater.
Art, you are a crime fighter. Bring us inside the mind of a crime fighter. Specifically, we have seen record numbers of people applying to be part of ICE. Are you concerned that those individuals who otherwise would be inclined to give that service to their country are now going to say, look, I wanted to be part of ICE, but now I'm not. I am deterred by what the left is doing, one, with the rhetoric, and two, what that rhetoric ultimately leads to, which is violence against ICE officers.
It takes a special person to want to wake up every morning, regardless of what agency you're working with, and put on that badge. Look, for over 2 decades, I put on that badge. I went out there each and every day, and I had it in my mind that there was a chance I wasn't going to make it home that day. And it takes a special person to be able to go out there and do that each and every day. I still think there's people out there that will do it. I know individuals will ask me, why keep doing it when we're seeing, you know, the attacks? Because as Americans, we're not going to wave the white flag. We're not going to just give up because somebody else wants to, you know, cause us evil. We need individuals to wake up each and every morning and do anything they can do because, like you just said, some individuals won't do it. So we need the right mindset and we need the right people that are going to go out there and defend our freedoms because freedom ain't free. So
to be clear, Art, you do not think that these latest incidents are going to decrease the record numbers of applicants to ICE, correct?
I think it's going to switch. I think you're going to have individuals that are going to want to do it more. You're going to say people that are going to see events like this, see events like what happened to Charlie Kirk, and they're going to say, I want to be out there. I want to be in those front lines, and I want to make sure that society is safe.
I want to be in the arena, so to speak. Art Del Cueto, thank you.
Some authorities said to be raiding 2 homes linked to the suspect in the shooting at that ICE facility in Dallas. Happened right on our watch just about 24 hours ago when we were covering that news in real time. The FBI saying he scrawled the phrase anti-ICE onto one of his unused bullets. The mayor of Dallas is Eric Johnson. He's with me now. And sir, thank you for your time. My best to you, your community. We were listening to your words yesterday and I thought they were very well received. So thanks for coming back today. Let's try and dig in here, okay? Texas Democrats are pointing blame at your governor and the president when they said the following: the Trump administration and the governor must stop stoking the flames of division, hate, and anger to exploit people's fears for political gain. Now, I heard you at the microphone. What do you think about a comment like that?
Well, I think it's unfortunate, and I think it's inappropriate and it's inaccurate. The reality is we have a problem in this country right now with political violence, and I think if we're honest about that, we can look back 5 years ago and we can see when Democrats started the process of vilifying law enforcement during the defund the police movement to appease Black Lives Matter activists. They started talking about local law enforcement being as big a threat to our safety as actual violent criminals. You know, rapists and murderers were being, equated with police. And then you fast forward to Trump's election, and they did the same thing. In order to appease pro-immigration activists, they started to equate ICE with the violent criminals in our community, some of whom are here illegally, and trying to create this false equivalency. And now you're starting to see people acting on that. I think we also see that there's increasing tolerance for political violence as a way to bring about policy change, particularly on the left. And so I think that confluence of events is leading to unfortunate events like yesterday. And if we don't do something about it, this won't be the last one. So I just think it was very unfortunate.
Yeah, there's a clear trend emerging. I know you're well aware of it. When we first met you several years ago, you were a Democrat. Now you're a Republican. And now we're trying to understand who this 29-year-old individual was, 29 years old. It's been reported that 2 homes were raided. It's been reported that he lived in Durant, Oklahoma. Can you confirm that?
I cannot, and I would say that what I want to do is to allow our this is actually an FBI investigation. I don't know if people are aware of that. This is not being handled by the Dallas Police Department. It occurred at a federal facility, so the jurisdiction is the FBI's. And I want to make sure that we are not getting conflicting information out there to the public. I want to be very respectful of this investigation so that we actually figure out what really happened yesterday and whether or not this person is acting alone or in a conspiracy with others. We don't know.
Right. Yeah. Do you know if he did? Did he act alone or was he talking to other people?
Again, this is an FBI investigation, and I want to let them report on the facts as they discover them and as they feel it's appropriate to divulge those to the public. So just to not jeopardize anything that they're doing at the investigation, I just want to refrain from speculating on any of that type of thing.
Do you know when the FBI is going to tell us things? Because we're still waiting for answers in Utah. We're waiting for answers in Minneapolis from a month ago. Heck, we're still waiting for Butler, Pennsylvania from last summer.
Yeah, I actually don't know what the FBI's timeline is on releasing information, but I do know this. Just yesterday, there were conflicting reports coming out about things as basic as the number of people who had been killed. And so that's the type of thing I want to not contribute to. You know, I want to focus on making sure our community is safe and making sure our community is comforted and everyone's staying calm here, and I do not want to contribute to getting in the way of a law enforcement investigation. And we need to remember that's what this is at its heart. We need to prosecute people who are involved in this type of behavior and make sure that we get justice for the victims and make sure that we are keeping communities safe. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of that.
You got it. Ted Cruz stood next to you yesterday and said your political opponents are not Nazis. That's a message we all need to hear, and if we continue to point the fingers at each other, we're not going to solve this. Sir, I respect your position. Thank you for coming on. We'll stay in touch with you and the other folks in Texas. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Reporters are. Tom Homan is with me in focus today, standing by. First, let's go to Brooke Taylor reporting from Dallas. Brooke.
Hi, Harris. Well, first, we have new information right now coming in from the FBI Director Kash Patel, who says that officials have been working around the clock 24/7 to go through this shooter's phone and find a possible motive. And what they found is pretty shocking. We want to pull up this post on X. This was posted again by FBI Director Kash Patel just in the last hour. He says the perp downloaded a document with a list of DHS facilities. He conducted multiple searches of ballistics and looked up the Charlie Kirk shot video in the last 2 days leading up to the shooting. According to the FBI director here, the shooter also searched apps that track the presence of ICE agents. And listen to this. He says that there was a handwritten note that was recovered that said, quote, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on the roof?" The FBI also released a picture of anti-ICE messages written on rounds that were found next to that shooter. Officials say this attack was a result of dangerous anti-ICE rhetoric. Officials say the gunman was firing at that ICE facility from the rooftop of a nearby building. He fired indiscriminately with bullets flying all around inside and outside that building. He also hit a van in the Sally Port that was carrying 3 illegal migrants. Officials say one of them died and the other was taken to the hospital. Sources close to this investigation shared this picture of the shooter's driver's license with me. He is identified as 29-year-old Joshua John. Officials say he shot and killed himself when officers cornered him. The New York Post reports that his mother posted a series of anti-gun rants on Facebook just a few years ago. Those rants were aimed at Republican lawmakers, including Senator Ted Cruz, who spoke here at this press conference yesterday.
Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the 3rd shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop.
And at the same facility, there was a bomb threat in August. And then in July, a police officer was shot in the neck in an ambush-style attack outside of an ICE detention facility here in Alvarado, Texas. But Harris, there has been a lot of questions about what the motive is. And I think those documents and what the FBI director, Kash Patel, just put out paints a pretty clear picture there.
Brooke, thank you very much for getting us started. I want to bring in now Tom Homan, border czar, and you have been warning us about this as a country for months. You have said this on this very program. If you have just a moment to stand by, I'm going to play you saying what you knew would happen.
I said 2 months ago, Harris, that if this rhetoric didn't stop, there would be bloodshed. And I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time before there's an incident where an ICE agent is going to have to take a life or an ICE agent is going to lose a life. Being compared to Nazis and racists, that it's going to end with the use of force, that either a criminal is going to die or an officer is going to die. It's going to end up with a loss of life, and it's not over. I mean, the rhetoric has to end. The rhetoric needs to be tapped down, or you're going to see more bloodshed. I called it 2 months ago, and unfortunately I was right.
And then now the new chapter of a detainee being the person who was killed and another detainee, a couple of them wounded in all of this. Your first reaction?
I wish I was wrong, but I've seen this movie before. I've been doing this, Harris, since 1984. I got over 4 decades doing this job, and I've seen this movie before. I've never seen it this bad, but you know, the rhetoric is what's causing all this hate, and it convinces that small percentage on the left that hate ICE to take action. When they have a congressman or someone that ran for vice president of the United States comparing ICE to Nazis, that gives some of these nuts and emboldens them to take action. And there's been 3 shootings in Texas alone. There was a gunman that showed up at a Border Patrol facility and started shooting at them. He picked the wrong facility. He picked a SWAT facility, and those officers ended up taking his life. Then there's a shooting just south of Dallas where they attacked an ICE facility and 1 officer was shot in the neck. Then this latest incident. This is based on hate that's being fueled by the media and members of Congress. and governors and mayors. You played it on your show. We got to stop. ICE agents are enforcing the law Congress enacted. If you don't like what ICE is doing, then go tell Congress, because they wrote the laws that ICE is obligated and took an oath to enforce. They're making this country safe again. Every day they take a public safety threat or a national security threat off the street, it makes that community safer. All these politicians and mayors and governors should be calling President Trump and thanking them for making their community safe again.
You know, the president has been talking about the high numbers of people that you all are looking at, and this was a processing center, or is, in Dallas, and that's kind of the last step before many of them will be kicked out of the country because they came here illegally. Those numbers, are they higher than what we thought? Like, where are we in the numbers of people that you are looking for right now?
Well, look, last time I looked, we're at about 600,000 illegal aliens with a criminal history walking the streets of this nation, mostly because of sanctuary cities. So they are the priority, right? Mm-hmm. So we're looking for them first. Worse is always first, but in sanctuary cities, if they're going to force us into the community to find a bad guy, and we find them with others, they're coming too. So sanctuary cities are saying, well, they're arresting non-criminals because you forced us into the neighborhood to find that guy. And when we find them, many times with others, we're not going to turn our back. We're not going to enforce the law that Congress enacted. We're not going to uphold the oath we took. If you want less collateral arrests, then let us in the damn jail. We're safe for the agent, it's safe for the alien, and it's safe for the community. But they won't do it. Look, throughout my career, I buried Border Patrol agents. I buried ICE agents. I've handed too many folded flags to spouses and children of those that died in line of duty. For God's sake, stop the rhetoric. Let's sit down and talk. But you can't keep attacking these men and women. They're patriots. They're moms and dads, too. And I want to see every one of them go home to their families every night, and I pray for that. And I pray for the safety of those we're looking for. No one needs to die. There's no death sentence here. Let ICE do their job. Let them take... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I wanted to just give some receipts for what you're saying. So there have been 9 notable anti-ICE or anti-CBP attacks, acts of violence during President Trump's second term. And just last week, violent protests, and this is the video after the scroll that I wanted to show. Just last week, violent protests broke out at an Illinois illegal immigrant processing center. Protesters shouted obscenities, slashed tires, hurled rocks and bottles at the agents there. Federal officials erected fencing to block access, but local leaders called it illegal, claiming it blocks firefighter access. I mean, you are hitting literal blocks, like a blockade to keep you from doing the job that you know you have to do.
Look, they're not going to stop us. They're not going to stop the men and women of ICE. They're brave. They're brave souls. They're out there trying to make their community safer. And I said it again, every public safety threat they arrest makes that community safer. These protesters don't know what the hell they're protesting. If you ask them why they're protesting, they're going to say things they've heard on the fake media. We're deporting U.S. citizens. No, we don't. We separate families. The families can, if a parent's being deported and they're here illegally and they chose to have a child, that's on them. They made the decision. But ICE isn't doing all the terrible things the media and the politicians are claiming to do. Every morning when I'm on my way to the White House, I look at 22 pages of data that shows exactly what ICE has done in the last 24 hours. And here's what the data says. 70%, right about 70% of everybody ICE arrests is a criminal. Who are the other 30%? Many of them are national security threats that we found. They don't have a criminal history because they're landlord to do the dirty deed. Many of them are final orders, people who had due process, great taxpayer expense, and the judges ordered them removed. We have to remove them. That's the law requires. And finally, the collaterals, the ones we're not looking for, but we find because we're forced in the community. That was what data says. I read it every day. So if the media would tell the truth about what ICE is actually doing, then maybe so many people wouldn't get inflamed and go protest something they know nothing about.
Well, we're getting a lot of that truth from you right now. I mean, 22 pages, the fact that that even has to be written in a 24-hour period lets you know what you were up against in terms of trying to find those some 600,000 known criminals in this country who came here illegally. And if they're with other people who are here illegally, which is also a crime, that is what is causing you to collect even more. And they all have to go. If they are not here, they can come back with CBP home. They can leave and come back, but they cannot stay. And that's your huge job. The truth will be told. Tom Homan, thank you.
Look, Harris, you got it. Thank you.
We will see you next time.
V local jurisdiction. We'll see if they fight that battle out. With me now is the former acting ICE director, Jonathan Fahey. So Hakeem Jeffries is weighed in now at yesterday's shooting at the Dallas ICE facility. Listen to what he said.
The level of political violence and ideologically motivated violence across the spectrum is far too high in the United States of America right now. We need leadership that brings people together, not national leadership that tears people apart.
We need leadership that brings people together, not national leadership that tears people apart. A Michael Jackson song comes to mind. I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
I'm asking him to change his ways.
Exactly. That's pretty stunning to hear that when his party has been repeatedly calling ICE agents the Nazis, the Gestapo, slave patrols. Routinely, it's almost like a Democrat-approved talking point at this point, and we just had a murder at the ICE facility, and it's like if you're going to be a leader, which he presumably is, he's the House leader for the Democrats. Why doesn't he ask his members to tone down their rhetoric? And the other thing is, the only person I can think of that's done that is John Fetterman. Everyone else seems perfectly fine with these types of things being said about ICE agents, and also the repeated lies that they know are putting them in greater danger.
And remember what Jeffrey said about taking the masks off of ICE agents, exposing their identity. I mean, he was making no apologies for that rhetoric.
Yeah, exactly. And why do they want to do that? Because they are basically suggesting these ICE agents are doing something wrong and they're illegitimate. So anything you do to them is therefore legitimate when you're fighting back against them. But the amazing thing is, the only ones following the law are the ICE agents and Donald Trump. That's their job, is to enforce the ICE laws to deport illegal immigrants. And these members of Congress, if they want open borders, if they want amnesty, which clearly they do, they should have the courage to stand up and put a bill in for it. And if they can't pass the bill, support our law enforcement.
And irony of ironies, the laws that ICE agents are enforcing are the ones that were passed across the street in the halls of Congress.
Exactly.
So you mentioned some of the rhetoric from Democrats. I think it also helps to listen to a little bit of that, just to remind folks at home what exactly has been said. Listen here.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
Secret police who are masked, who are intimidating, who are scaring people. These Gestapo-like tactics.
It does look like a Gestapo operation. It does look like the Gestapo.
When you hear rhetoric like that, is it any surprise that what happened yesterday happened?
No, and we've been talking about this for the better part of a year. Something really bad is going to happen because of this rhetoric. And the Tim Walz thing is, in so many ways, the worst one, because he's had a commencement speech for, I believe, a law school, which is supposed to be an uplifting event with prepared remarks that had the Gestapo in there. So that wasn't some slip of the tongue. These are standard talking points from the Democrats, and something like this was bound to happen, and something like this, even worse, is bound to happen if they don't tone it down. It's time to support law enforcement, support the community, and ICE is doing the work of the American people and what they're required to do, deporting illegal aliens, and particularly criminal illegal aliens.
One of the most outspoken cheerleaders against ICE has been the California governor. He was on the Colbert Show on Tuesday. Listen to part of what he said here.
People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. These are not just authoritarian tendencies. These are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government.
Some 8 hours later, that shooting happened in Dallas. And the cruel irony is that the person who was killed was a detainee.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Gavin Newsom just a couple days earlier was talking about his mask mandate, which is just another opportunity for him to defame ICE agents and to defame this administration, where they're saying they're going to require these federal officers to wear masks when he knows darn well that it's not even constitutional. So when he's talking about authoritarianism, well, the state governments don't get to tell the federal government what to do. So if you look at all of that.
Tell me what you told me just before we came on about if a local law enforcement officer were to try to enforce that law.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it. If a local law enforcement officer tried to enforce that law, not only would the federal agent be immune from prosecution, but that state agent could be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. So ironically, he could get his own officers in federal prison if they try to enforce this law. It's totally insane, and he knows better, but for him, it's all about him.
It's all about politics.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir. I want to go to Dallas now, where there's a news conference going on with an update on that ICE shooting yesterday. This is Nancy Larson, the acting United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. Let's listen in.
Marcos Charles, the acting Executive Associate Director of ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations. We also have Josh Johnson, the acting Field Office Director, ERO Operations, Dallas Field Office. Travis Pickard, Special Agent in charge of HSI Dallas, and Benny Mims, Special Agent in charge of ATF Dallas. At the back, I will be putting a sign-in sheet for all media, so please, before you leave, add your information so that we have that. And following the remarks, we will have a brief period for questions and answers. Please remember to identify yourself and your media affiliation when you ask a question. And with that, I'll turn it over to Acting U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is the third time in my short 4-month tenure as the acting United States Attorney for this district where we have suffered violent attacks and threats at ICE facilities. First, you'll recall July 4th, 2024, the violent attack on the Prairieland facility in Alvarado, Texas. The second occurred on August 25th, 2024, when Bratton Dean Wilkinson, who stands charged by federal complaint, pretended to have a bomb. He showed up at the ICE facility with a backpack and something that looked like a detonator on his wrist and threatened the facility. Third, of course, is yesterday's attack, September 24th, 2025, when the Dallas ICE facility was riddled with gunfire, costing the life of one detainee and injuring 2 other detainees critically. Initially, I want to commend the cooperation of the Dallas Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the ATF, ICE, and HSI for their swift and decisive response to this crime. Members of these agencies quickly secured the scene and the evidence and worked tirelessly to determine any continuing threat. Due to their efforts, it did not take long to ascertain the identity of the shooter, who was deceased by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that he very likely acted alone. His name is Joshua Yan, 29, of Fairview, Texas. Let me just review a very brief summary of the timeline of yesterday's attack. We believe at some point around 3 o'clock in the morning that the suspect was seen driving on footage with a large ladder on his car. And we believe that that is what he used to position himself on top of the building. The shooting itself started at approximately 6:30 a.m. After the shooting started, Dallas Police Department arrived en masse, secured the scene. Law enforcement officers found the sniper dead. They found bullets on the rooftop, one of which was labeled with the words anti-ICE. That morning, gunshots sprayed the length of the building, the windows, and law enforcement vans that were in the Sallyport area. Detainees were struck by these bullets. 1 was killed, 2 were wounded, and both of them are undergoing treatment. Shortly thereafter, the FBI began its meticulous work at the crime scene. At the same time, we obtained and executed multiple search warrants yesterday for devices and locations associated with the sniper. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, yes, it was just me. That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and 2 other detainees that were injured when he fired into the sally port. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE. That said, we did not find evidence of membership in any specific group or entity, nor did he mention any specific government agency other than ICE. Among his papers, though, was a handwritten note in which, in crude words, he expressed his hatred for the federal government. Finally, I want to address the heroism of our federal agents yesterday. While under fire, ICE agents and ATF agents who were also present in the facility's Sally Port area worked together to remove detainees from the vans and get them to safety while the bullets were flying. These agents were heroic, clearly willing to lay down their lives to save the lives of the detainees in their custody. And that's an extremely important point to make at this point in time. I want to express my deepest appreciation for the bravery of these law enforcement officers yesterday and every single day that they go out there to keep us safe. I'll now turn it over to FBI Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, Joe Rothrock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking our acting United States Attorney, Nancy Larson, and her office for their support during this investigation. My name is Joe Rothrock, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas Field Office. Yesterday morning, Joshua Yan carried out a targeted, ambush-style attack on law enforcement. Today, I will provide you with some updates of what we've learned through our investigation to date, to include Yan's own words in his handwritten notes. Yan specifically intended to kill ICE agents. He fired at transport vehicles carrying ICE personnel, federal agents, and detainees. He also fired multiple shots into the windows of the office building where numerous ICE employees do their jobs every day. We now know that Yan engaged in significant high degree of pre-attack planning. He searched for information about the office building and how to track ICE agents' locations. Yan also acknowledged the potential for other casualties. He knew with a high likelihood ICE detainees would be transported that morning in the exact location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Yan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of one detainee and the injury to 2 other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Jan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Jan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack, yet again, underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the second attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Jan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Ultimately, they located the shooter, who was deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. I want to thank them for their prompt response and dedication to protecting and serving their communities. I also want to thank our partners that have assisted in this investigation. The Fairview Police Department, as well as our partners in Oklahoma, to include Bryant County Sheriff's Department, Durant Police Department, and Choctaw Nation Light Horse Police, as well as our personnel from San Antonio and Oklahoma City within the FBI that assisted. The FBI has dedicated its entire breadth of resources to ensure this investigation is completed thoroughly. The FBI stands with our law enforcement partners, and today we express that the attacks against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. While we believe Jan acted alone, we are still asking that anyone with information about Jan or his activities report that to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at www.fbi.gov/Dallas ERO shooting. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Charles.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. I am the ICE Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. The attack on ICE's Dallas field office yesterday was tragic. And while our hearts and prayers are with the family of the detainees who were shot, the evidence is clear that this was intended as an assault on ICE personnel who come to work every day to do their job. Violent rhetoric has led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and it has to stop. In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger, along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are. Law enforcement officers who want the best for our country. That's ICE. Integrity, courage, excellence. They were willing to put their lives on the line to pull detainees out of the transport van to get them to safety. They are heroes, and I hope the media has the integrity to shine a light on this story. Enough is enough with the harmful lies and violent rhetoric. It has to stop. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security to counter the increased wave of these lethal attacks. Again, we call on those who foment violence and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop. There's been an increase in violence against ICE agents, not only in Texas and Dallas, but across the country in violent protests. Again, I ask everybody, just stop. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, we'll direct it to the appropriate person. You're first up.
Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Can you tell an estimate of how many shots were fired and how he was able to get those off so quickly with the bolt-action rifle?
Yeah, so I'll answer that at this point. Again, I'll just remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. The ICE facility, the ICE office, really, it is a business office. This is where business is done on a daily basis by our partners at ICE. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in resources from San Antonio, Oklahoma City, obviously our own FBI resources here in Dallas, as well as folks from our lab, because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick.
Thank you. Can you talk to us more about the detainees in the van? Were they transported to Alvarado, Texas, or what happened to them?
So you're referring to detainees that were not injured?
Correct. And
Yeah.
maybe you could give us an update on the ones that are injured, identities, nationalities.
So I won't be providing any updates at this time on the identities of the detainees that were injured. ICE has a process from notifications to consulate and to next of kin. That process is ongoing, and so we'll defer to our ICE counterparts at some point to determine when it's the right time to release that information. The other detainees remain safe. They are victims as well of this violent crime, and they are people that we are actively interviewing as part of our investigation. Right here in front.
Hey, Matt Kyle, Dallas Morning News. Ms. Larson had referenced anti-government, anti-federal government statements that Mr. Yan had made. Is there any more information y'all can release about what exactly was in those writings?
The clearest motivation for this attack are his own words. In his handwritten notes, he says, "I want to cause terror." He doesn't want to just impact the ICE agents and the law enforcement agents that were carrying out that mission yesterday. He wants to impact ICE agents and law enforcement across the country. Again, his words, cause terror for those employees across the country. Over here.
Shannon Miller with NBC DFW. Any indication how long the suspect had been planning this attack?
Well, this is, again, as I referenced in my remarks, this is significant pre-planning months in advance. We know that he obtained the firearm in August. We also know that he was looking at a number of DHS facilities and he had downloaded that information. He was looking at the apps, as my counterpart mentioned, to see where ICE agents would be. So this was not something that just occurred yesterday. It came to a conclusion yesterday, but this is something months in the making.
Priscilla Thompson with NBC Network News. From what we have heard, this person was not particularly political. Was there anything that you all have found in terms of an inciting incident that led him to commit this attack?
Unfortunately, the challenge with these mass casualty incidents is people can be motivated to violence by any number of grievances. In this case, the clearest indication of motivation are his own words. He wanted to cause terror. He wanted to harm ICE personnel.
Hilda Duarte, Echo Latino Radio. The deceased shooter, did he have a relation with somebody who had been detained by ICE or mistreated by ICE for him to act this way?
Again, the clearest motivations at this point are the harm he wanted to cause to ICE. We're not aware of any specific relationships he had with anybody in detention. But again, our investigation's ongoing. We're going to unturn every stone here. And so that continues.
Hi, Omar Villafranca with CBS News. Secretary Noem has asked for increased security at ICE facilities across the country. Can you say what is going to be done to harden these facilities to protect agents and detainees?
So I cannot say what will be done by our partners at DHS to harden their facilities. What I can say, and I can draw upon just our recent experiences here in North Texas, is we've seen attacks now, 2 ambush-style attacks, where law enforcement was the target of individuals who did significant pre-planning and coordination to set up law enforcement, again, in an ambush-style attack.
But anything that they physically are going to do for these facilities, since they're still operating, to protect them? There's still no barrier up or anything like that at this facility.
I would need to refer to my partner supervising that.
Yeah, so currently We're looking at hardening some of our facilities. Also, I don't want to give away any operational security as to how we're going to be doing that.
But there are plans?
There are plans to harden some of our facilities. Back there.
Robbie Owens, CBS News, Texas. Were the Yon family immigrants?
Mr. Yon was not an immigrant. He was a United States citizen. He was here legally. I won't be going into the details on anybody other than Mr. Yon at this time. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the ICE agents, or the agents that were there at the location that helped him when shots were beginning to fire. Can you give us some more perspective on what the situation was with the detainees that were in the vans? Were they handcuffed? Were they shackled? Why weren't they able to get out of the vehicle by themselves?
Again, these were individuals that were detained by law enforcement. There were multiple transport vehicles at the facility at that time. Again, what I would stress at this point is under gunfire, multiple federal agents ran into that fire to remove these individuals and to attempt to render life-saving aid under the most dire circumstances.
And just for clarity, they were restrained.
They were being, the individuals in the vans were being restrained. It's a proper procedure for transport. The individuals that are brave men and women that went out there to go help and rescue were the ones that were injured and could not leave the van on their own.
And we know that that's common because we've seen obviously transports before. So we just wanted clarity to understand why they weren't able to leave on their own.
The other individuals that were in the van were able to leave on their own. It was the ones that were injured who were unable to exit the vehicle. Sir.
Have you guys gotten any cooperation from the suspect's family and this idea that the anti-government, federal government attitudes, were there, have any family members expressed any signs that we knew that this was happening, or was this just all kept to himself?
Teaser.
As is common in these investigations of mass casualty incidents, we are going to interview everybody we can identify that might have information about the motivations or who might have information about the pre-planning or who may have assisted in this attack. I won't be outlining every interview we conducted today, but we will be doing a thorough investigation. And again, one of the reasons we ask for additional information for the public is if there are those out there that had contact with Jan, we would like to hear from them, and we would like to gain an understanding of what their relationship was.
Is his family cooperative?
I won't be going into details about other aspects of the investigation.
Luke Clary, WFAA. Can you expand on why you believe that he acted alone here, and can you go into it all, any activity he may have had in online forums or communities that may have influenced his action?
So again, the totality of our investigation includes interviews, canvassing areas, collecting surveillance video. We're certainly looking at his digital footprint online as well as digital devices. I'm not going to outline the details from every one of those. Again, his own words called out that he committed this act alone, and all the evidence we have to date would indicate that that's accurate.
Alex with Fox 4 News. You mentioned that the ICE facility, I believe, is still an active crime scene. Can you talk about what will happen in the coming days with that facility? Are there detainees being held there? Have they all been taken away? Is it operational as an office?
It is going to remain an active crime scene for some time. Again, we will be there as long as it takes to make sure that we've captured every piece of physical evidence.
Emma Ruby with the Dallas Observer. You mentioned the one bullet that was found with kind of ideological writing on it. Have any of the bullets found around the scene had any writing on it, or is it just the one?
Again, active crime scene. We're still collecting physical evidence.
Jim Schultz with ABC News. Around the crime scene, when his car was actually being towed, there was some writings on that vehicle. Can you give us a sense about what those were and how they play into your investigation?
So the vehicle was searched as part of our investigation. I don't have additional details to share with you now about any writings, but certainly if we have updates, we'll provide those in the future. Ma'am.
Ashley Killer with CNN. Y'all mentioned that he used a ladder to position himself. Did he use the ladder to get on top of the roof, or is that where he?
Yeah,
is that where his body was found?
He was found on top of a neighboring roof. We believe he used the ladder to access that roof. Sir.
Yeah, Dave with Fox News Channel. Was suicide part of his plan all along, or was he cornered by law enforcement?
His handwritten notes indicate that he did not expect to survive this event. Sir.
Kevin Reese, WFAA. A personal question, if you would dare. Can you explain to people in this climate what it's like to be an ICE agent right now?
As I had said, the ICE officers that are out there right now, if you've seen them in multiple times on the news. They're out there doing their job with courage and honor. Yes, there is a heightened sense of security for everybody, not only at work, but for their families, for their loved ones, mainly because of the doxing that's going on and the violent rhetoric that people have been perpetrating.
Mr. Charles, while you're up there, can I just follow up to that question and ask, of the agents that did respond on that day for yesterday morning, can you tell us what they were wearing at the time? Because I know sometimes ICE agents do and don't have bulletproof gear on. Can you give us an idea of how they responded, what they had on them at the time?
So they're wearing their normal gear, and it was not only ICE agents, it was ATF agents also that went out there and heroically came out and under fire went to rescue those individuals.
Have you spoken to them?
I have spoken to one of them so far. I haven't spoken to them. They're doing okay.
All right, we have time for one more question. About the immigration status for those individuals who were injured. What's their immigration status going to, is it going to change? Maybe perhaps even those who were in the van, ACU.
The individuals that were in the van will be going through due process, and they'll go through the whole immigration proceeding. So I'm not going to go into what their status is currently.
And those who were injured?
Same thing.
All right, folks, we have time for one more question.
Can you at least tell us where the papers were found? Fairview or Oklahoma?
That one's for you.
So again, I'm not going to detail every aspect of the case. We did search his residence, and that is where we found the handwritten notes. And that's all the time we have for questions today. When we have more updates, we'll come back.
Thank you.
But first, breaking tonight, the FBI searching the home of the gunman who they say opened fire on an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas. Officials say they found notes and a digital footprint that sheds a whole lot more light on a potential motive for the deadly targeted attack. Investigators say the shooter wrote about terrorizing ICE agents. He calls them, quote, people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. Evidence also revealing significant planning ahead of that attack. Officials say the sniper had hoped to maximize his lethality. Correspondent Nate Foy is on the ground in Dallas with everything we know so far. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Jillian, good evening. So federal authorities say the shooter, 29-year-old Joshua Yan, spent months planning this attack and that he intended to kill ICE agents, not migrants. He failed in that. He critically injured 2 migrants and he killed one of them. No law enforcement was injured in this attack. Now, investigators collected evidence here at the crime scene, and they also went to the shooter's home in nearby Fairview, Texas. They found several notes and digital evidence indicating his target.
He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism.
Yeah, Jillian, and in the 2 days leading up to the shooting, Yan searched for the Charlie Kirk assassination video multiple times. He also searched for an app that tracks ICE agents and used a ladder to reach a nearby rooftop before firing. He marked anti-ICE on a shell casing left behind. But despite the verbal attacks against ICE agents, we're learning more about the heroic actions during the shooting.
In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger, along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump is blaming certain Democrats for villainizing ICE agents, like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who recently compared them to the slave patrol.
The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're Very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left.
The acting U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Texas said it's very likely that Jan acted alone, and in one of the letters recovered by investigators, he allegedly wrote, quote, "Yes, it was just me." Now, Jillian, as you know, this is not an isolated incident. Of course, across the country, there have been several incidents of violence against ICE agents. But just here in Texas, this is the third example of a threat of violence or violence itself against an ICE facility in Texas in the past 3 months. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Nate Foy digging into all those details for us tonight. Thank you. And today, the FBI revealing stunning new details on the deadly attack on an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, that left one detainee dead and 2 others wounded. Information found from the suspect's phone included a downloaded document containing a list of DHS facilities in the Dallas area, multiple searches of ballistics, and of, quote, Charlie Kirk shot video, and it gets worse from there.
He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking.
The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target.
And the gunman also leaving a shell casing that read anti-ICE. But a former senior FBI official seems to think that the shooter was inspired by right-wing extremists.
The irony with the writing, the first time we really saw that was Brenton Tarrant. He was a fierce, white supremacist. To see this coming from, potentially the other side of the political spectrum is a little strange. Why you would use a tactic that a famous white supremacist who has been revered and copycatted over the years by other white supremacists, why you would do that. But it does appear that people are moving in that direction because they want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
And here's President Trump reiterating his call for the left to stop with anti-ICE rhetoric that compares agents to fascists.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. It's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. The right is a lot tougher than the left, but the right's not doing this. They're not doing it, and they better not get them energized because it won't be good for the left, and I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people.
And I just want to play this montage that our team put together of anti-ICE rhetoric.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the street.
Running around our communities like masked bank robbers? Terrorizing women?
When I talked about what terrorism looks like, this is it.
When I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
This is not Germany. That's the SS and the Gestapo. This is the United States of America. Unmask yourselves.
Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process.
All right, let's start with you today, Greg, as this information has come out, and it seems like that FBI official, the former FBI analyst, I wasn't understanding what he was saying.
I think it had to have been Charles Krauthammer that said it first about the left and the right. The right thinks the left is wrong. The left thinks the right is evil. It all flows from there. It's not just about the violence. We know the violence is bad. It's the language that is used to advance your party and disadvantage the other party. And why is this important? Because it's not illegal. You can't arrest Pritzker. You can't arrest Gavin Newsom. You can't arrest Colbert or Joy Behar for calling you a Nazi or Hitler. And that's a good thing. You're not supposed to arrest them. So then what do you do if you can't arrest them? All you can do is convince them or get them to see that you're putting people in harm's way when you use this language. And by the way, you're also destroying your own party because your party is being associated with this kind of behavior and this kind of rhetoric. Liberal leaders need to see that you are playing with fire. You have a repetitive, inflammatory messaging that you've released into the wild, and you have followers who will act on it. A lot of them are mentally ill. The polls show There are far more mentally ill in the Democrat in the liberal sphere than the conservative sphere. The point is, there is nothing in politics that makes this strategy worth it. Politics isn't worth demonizing the other side. You need to stop making it deadly and making it petty. That's what I do. It's not words like moron or fat ass or liar that gets people killed. I've been calling people fat and ugly for 20 years, and no one has died from it. It's Nazi, it's fascists, it's Hitler. Those are the words. Actions that require planning are incited by ideas. Those ideas are planted, and that is the idea that is being planted. It's not silly names that I use or Trump uses when he calls people stupid. In the hierarchy of slurs, those don't even come close to Hitler. Me calling Joy Behar a cow is not going to get her targeted by our viewers. I'm not calling her a threat to democracy. I'm calling her a threat to chairs. That doesn't change. That doesn't do anything. So what I'm asking is, we don't want to get bogged down in the who's worse in the world of violence. We're talking about, can you at least stop demonizing us? That's all we're asking. Don't call us Hitler anymore. Don't call us Nazis. You see where this leads. We can call me stupid, call me short, call me loud, call me rude. I will take it. But don't call me Hitler, at least to my face.
Kenny, do you think that they could stop? At this point, no. And I think it's a really, really bad and perilous path that Democrats are going down. And I look at someone like Gavin Newsom. All you have to do is look at the coalition that President Trump put together for his second presidential victory in 2020. Just kidding. In 2024. And you will see that the people who are most disaffected in this country are white men, black men, young men, and they're the ones who they have grown numb to this kind of language, and you have to offer them so much more than hysteria. And, unfortunately, Gavin Newsom and other formerly rational mainstream Democrats have gotten completely addicted to fanning the flames and trying to stoke an emotional reaction with diminishing returns, because at some point that doesn't work anymore. And not only does it not work anymore, not only are you not appealing to the voters that are going to be completely necessary in order for you to achieve victory in 2028, you have made the political tenor and climate in this country so incredibly dangerous. We talked about this morning on your show, America's Newsroom, which airs 9 to 11 a.m. Weekdays. Monday through Friday. Yeah, that's right. Monday through Friday.
Who's that guy you're with?
Hammer. Bill Hammer. MC Hammer. He's quite talented. But there are so many people, to Greg's point, who are so easily agitated, who are truly unwell, and they are responding to this call to arms. Because they have to realize, they have to look inside themselves and realize that that is what they are doing. They are appealing to sick, disaffected, narcissistic, socially isolated people who want to be heroes, who don't believe in God. And, it's like, it's got to be bad news for a guy who wakes up in hell after killing a detained migrant and not an ICE agent, to realize that his life and death were an absolute failure. And you can really thank the rhetoric from people like Jasmine Crockett and J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom, who aren't pulling back. They're doubling down on this. And, they're not only costing society, they're also potentially costing their own political fortunes. Jessica.
So what really stuck out to me in the press conference is they said that he had watched Charlie Kirk shot videos. And we talk about that every time there's one of these shooters, and then the discussion, like, should you put his face on screen? And I understand Tyler Robinson is alive and he's going to go through his trial. So it's a little bit different than, publicizing someone who is no longer with us. But that means that we have our first case of an inspired shooting, right? So 2 weeks later, someone else has killed a person and injured 2 others, seeking fame and trying to do the same thing that Tyler Robinson did. And that's really frightening, because that works like a ricochet, right? That people, especially these kids, don't seem to have a lot to live for. think, I mean, he went and blew his face off, right? So he clearly didn't have a lot to live for. He thought, I'll make sure that I'm, the front page of every paper and I'm the top of every newscast. And that really scares me. And I hadn't heard what Paul was talking about yesterday in terms of getting some sort of domestic terrorist law passed. I think that people on both sides of the aisle should absolutely be looking at that, because there have to be real penalties for this to make sure that everybody is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law possible, and that you don't have to be downgrading charges to make sure that you can actually get a conviction. Donald Trump said something interesting in the Oval at the end, where he said, I'm the president for all of you. And whether it's deserved or not, and I certainly do not want to get into the same discussion that I've had a couple times in the last few weeks, because I value my mental health. Whether he likes it or not, tens of millions of Americans do not feel like he is their president and that he cares about them equally to those who voted for him. And there is an opportunity then that I hope that he takes. Maybe it's an Oval Office address. I'm not saying it's like a do-over for right after Charlie was murdered, but there is soothing that this country needs desperately at this moment. And it doesn't mean that you will convert, people on the left who have an impression of him from the day he came down the golden escalator. But it does mean that he can be on the record making that loud and clear to people that he wants peace in this country and he wants to make sure that we don't have ideological violence.
But imagine how powerful that would be if a Democrat were the soothing voice. Imagine
but every Democrat,
I know, but imagine Gavin Newsom really wants to be president. Imagine if Gavin Newsom looked at Americans and said, we can't
one of them is
to respect one another, but he's
they all
doubling down on the Nazi talk.
Every elected Democrat in a position of power came out and said all the right things about political violence has no place in society, et cetera, after Charlie was murdered. Guys, one person is the president, and the rest of these people are maybe trying to be president. I'm just saying there's an opportunity.
I just know that we played the montage earlier, Jesse. There was not anybody aside from the Democrats who were talking about anti-ICE rhetoric in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you can put out a statement on social media, I condemn violence, and the next day you call them the Gestapo, Jessica. It takes a lot more than that. And you're right, though. This was a copycat from Charlie Kirk. And the media is also copycatting how they frame Charlie Kirk. The media is saying on MSNBC that ICE deserved it, that ICE had it coming, that ICE is divisive, and they need to dial back the operations, and if they don't, they're going to get shot more. How are you able to justify violence like that? This is like saying, oh, you know what, the girl deserved it. She was wearing a short skirt. This is what they said on 9/11. The chickens came home to roost. They did it after the BLM riots, too. Remember, we got all these articles. Why rioting is righteous. And now you see them go through this slippery defensiveness every time. First, oh, not sure what the motive is when they fire rounds at ICE. And then they see the scrawled anti-ICE messages on the shell casings, and they say, oh, maybe he was MAGA. And now it's, you know what? They kind of deserved it. And so Pelosi, Schumer, Hakeem, they have not said to knock it off. To everybody in their caucus, they have not said that. And that tells me they're either afraid of their crazy base, and that means they're cowards, and that means their base is so insane that they'll be mad at Chuck for saying this, or they kind of like it. And so it's either one or the other. And they created the mess. You can't pour 10 million foreign nationals into the country unvetted, have them go haywire, have the voters say, please, someone kick them out. And when the officers doing the kicking out get attacked, you can't say they deserved it. Now, Donald Trump on January 6th, all he said was march peacefully and patriotically. No one got shot. No one. And now this is the second or third time these crazy people have shot federal law enforcement officials. And what are the Democrats saying? They're saying this is war. They're saying that this is the Gestapo, that it's Nazism.
You said we are at war.
No, that's what I said. They said. Chris Murphy said, quote, this is war, we're at war, and we have to do whatever's necessary to win it. And that's the kind of language you use when you're in a democracy.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.